You think we can?
You don't know what we're going to do. We can finish at 6.
The changes or things you think need to be
Turn on
changed.
your mics. Make sure your mics are turned on. Widener, make sure your mic is turned on, please. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a day without rain. Yay. And sunshine and blue skies. I'm calling the meeting to order at 4 o'clock. We have an amendment to our agenda. We have to add public comments under the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I hear a motion to adopt that amended agenda?
So moved.
Wendell moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Widener second. Mr. Holloman, would you like to do the invocation?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Bow your heads. Lord, we come before you humbly today and we ask your blessings upon the residents and visitors here in the audience, and also on the town staff and town employees and the mayor and council, and for the upcoming summer season and summer camp at Parks and Recreation. We ask you for a safe and joyful summer, and we give you all praise and glory. We ask in your name, amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to do public hearing. First is Wilson King. Wilson, when you come up to public hearing, sorry, public comment, when you come up, be sure to give your address to Tamara.
Don't worry, I know that by now.
Okay. And folks, just to let you know, Wilson's going to talk about some people we've lost, so I'm going to forego the 5 minutes, although he knows he really has to make it go fast.
Who's got the cook? Greetings once again. Unfortunately, our history has always been very important to me, and as such, our people are important. Our people do contribute a great deal to the history, although they don't contribute everything to it. But a few years back, I started mentioning the names of people we had lost in these meetings with the thought that if their names were recorded in the minutes, they would be less easily forgotten. The fact that my presentation sometimes was spotty, I apologize for, but my intentions were good, so I appreciate your indulgence. Shirley Chamberlain, wife of Pete Chamberlain. When Shirley was first introduced to me, she was an Everhart. That meant an impending second marriage for both Pete and Shirley. About 90 years before that, I'd gone to school with a little girl named Rosemary Everhart. And for some reason, the little man in my head kept telling me I had to call Shirley Rosemary. And I did repeatedly and forever. When I explained to her why I was calling her somebody else's name, she just smiled and said, "Don't fret about it." She was very indulgent, very kind about it. So our condolences to Pete and his family. In a much earlier stage of my life, I made 2 important decisions, both of which proved to be very fortuitous. The first was in the 1960s when I decided to come up to Boone to go to school. That got me to the mountains, and I thought I'd found paradise. In the 1970s, I decided to move to Beach Mountain, and I knew I found paradise. One of the first people I met was Hobart Watson. He was our chief of police at the time, but he was way yonder more. I've always felt like that every business needs a front man, somebody to smile and shake hands and meet and greet, somebody to be the face of the operation. That was Hobart. In a word, Hobart was ubiquitous. Rain, shine, sleet, snow, weekends, holidays, he didn't care. If something was going on in his mountain, and by God, he was going to be here to take part in it. So he was everywhere all the time. He was, in fact, the front man for Beach Mountain. Shortly after we incorporated the town, our first town manager left us for a job in the city, as the song goes. And we decided that the way to get through the interim between the town of the 2 town managers was for each one of us to take a different department of the town and sign on as supervisors. Somebody took administration, somebody took public works. I took the police department, and I became the first and so far only police commissioner for the town. And let me tell you, it was a cushy job. All I had to do was ride around, listen to the radio, and collect big bucks. Actually, there was no job to it because Hobart was in charge and he knew the police biz. So I just learned to keep my mouth shut and stay out of it, and everything turned out fine. A few years later, when I was mayor, we had a police appreciation dinner. And in my remarks that evening, I said, we're the luckiest town in this country. Our policemen are our friends. And they were. They would smile, they would wave, they would stop and talk, they would visit. They were here to help. If you needed to have, if an older person needed help unloading the groceries, call the police, they were there. If you were indisposed and need somebody to check on your dog, they didn't mind doing that either. They didn't work for us, they were us. We told them what we knew, they told us what they knew. We didn't have a 6-man police department, we had a 106-man department. We had community policing before it came into vogue, but that was Hobart. That was his way. When he learned that his son wanted to go into police work, he sat him down and said, the first rule, the first thing you do is you be nice. If you be nice, everything else comes easy. And that's the first rule of Beach Mountain too, by the way. Hobart was a jewel, and he married a jewel. His wife, Jewel Watson, worked for Carolina Business Machines over in Boone. This was before Kmart, Walmart, Staples, and all the other ones, so we all got our business supplies, our office supplies from Jewel. You could call her one day and give her your order, and she said, I'll have it to you tomorrow. And she would, of course, make Hobart bring it the next day on his way to work. It was good for us, it was good for them. They were an important part of Beach Mountain. We lost Shirley about 2 months ago after an extended illness. We lost Jewel about a little less than 2 years ago after another extended illness. We lost Hobart about 3 weeks ago as a result of injuries in a car accident. At first, the speculation was that he had had a stroke or a heart attack, ran across the road and hit another car. That hasn't proven to be the case. So right now, I guess nobody really knows what the end of the story is, and we do know what the end is, but we don't know the cause. So to Shirley, by the way, I wasn't telling you a story just so I wouldn't make a mistake. I wrote Shirley on the back of this piece of paper. To Shirley, to Jewel, and to Hobart, happy trails. Thanks for your indulgence.
Thank you.
Mark Brown. Mark, when you come up, just state your address for our town clerk, and you're going to be limited to 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Mark Brown, 110 Sweetwater Drive. I'm here to address the item on the agenda today involving the McCormick Petrus parcel, which you've been asked to receive. It abuts our property on Sweetwater Drive. And just to give you a little history, we have lived on Sweetwater Drive for 19 years. We also own 2 other parcels. If you look on Sweetwater, if you look at the aerial, which was attached to your agenda, you'll see our property is surrounded by woods. We're at the dead end. In fact, when we tell people how to get to our house, we tell them you follow the utility pole lines all the way down Buckeye until they stop. Then you make a right on Sweetwater if you follow those utility poles until they stop. We're the very last house on the grid. And just like Wilson mentioned before, it's our little piece of paradise. All of our neighbors are 4-legged, except for the birds, the 2-legged ones. And it is a real refuge for us. The proposed acceptance of a parcel, as you can see, is right behind. We're at 110. We also own the lot right next to us and another lot 2 down. There's one other house on the street at 109, and there's some lovely people who live there as well. The property, I haven't seen the appraisal that you all were getting. I assume the highest and best use is to preserve it in its natural state as it is now. I don't think it's buildable. And I'm here simply to say, we like it just like it is. And I don't know that you will make any other use of it other than preserving it to keep the character of that neighborhood like it is. But if at some point in the future you do decide that you want to use it for some other purpose, we would really appreciate getting notice of that and being given an opportunity to be heard before any decision is made. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jimmy Accardi. Give your address.
Yes, ma'am. 402 Beach Mountain Parkway. I'm going to wear my TDA hat for a second just to give you guys the report. So for the marketing end, we are still working good with the Pineapple firm that we hired last year. Over the past year, we've seen an increase of web traffic and social media, and more on social media and increased flow to the websites to the various lodging partners and businesses on the mountain. And in addition to a tremendous increase of occupancy tax. Some of the media outlets were featuring the skiing up here in skisoutheast.com. Several articles mentioned in pet-friendly destinations in the Watauga Democrat. And then the top attraction of this time of year is still the Land of Oz, and that's it on those. Now the results from that, the revenue from the visitors of Beach Mountain has increased beyond that, Revenue from visitors on Beach Mountain has increased far beyond that the state as a whole. Through the entire state is having a good year. Governor Roy Cooper announced that North Carolina saw a 5.6 increase in visitor-related revenues in 2018, which is the largest increase since 2011. Beach Mountain saw an increase of over 14.5% in the same time period. And you can read that information on your agenda. And then the numbers for 2017 for the total income for lodging businesses on Beach Mountain was just a little over $5.8 million last year in the fiscal year. This year, 2018-19, it's just over $6.6 million. And then the last thing to wrap up was the phone calls from the visitor center. You're primarily seeing it from North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee, and then South Carolina. And then that also follows how they track the website hits. It's kind of following the same thing. And that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for your input. We've got 2 public hearings. So do I hear a motion to open the public hearing for the 2019-2020 annual budget?
So moved.
Barry moved. Wendell second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Do we have anybody that would like to speak for the public hearing on the budget? First, come on up. I knew it. I was just waiting for you.
He didn't jump.
Well, I was going to give everybody else the opportunity.
Okay.
Urs Snyder, 124 Raven Road. Politics is the art of compromise. It's a phrase that many of you have probably heard before, often attributed to Americans. It's actually a variation of a phrase that is from Otto von Bismarck, which is that politics is the art of the possible. Our democracy is built on compromise. The rise of ideologues in this country, in my view, may be the death of our democracy because it would result in the death of compromise. The budget that you have before you, I think, is a compromise. But I think it's a fair compromise. On balance, it's a good budget. It is much better than many budgets in the past. It is moving in the direction that this town needs to move. I do have a few small issues with it, always, and just point them out. I mean, they are more for your consideration in the future as opposed to any changes this year. I continue to have concerns about the growth in the police budget. Looking at the numbers, there's about a 7% increase in salaries alone. Some of that is attributable to areas outside of our control, such as the increase in state requirement for mandatory retirement funding. Some of it, however, is within our control. I continue to have concerns about the rather dramatic increase in the recreation budget. We've eliminated the Buckeye Recreation Center debt. That's $136,000. Yet even adding the $150,000 for the Shane Park, we still have almost an 18% increase in the recreation budget. My third concern is merit raises. As long as we keep doing a combination of COLAs and merit raises, we continue to ratchet our personnel costs ever higher. Something to consider in the future might be to use merit bonuses instead of merit raises. Merit bonuses are one-time payments that do not contribute to a continual ratchet of your personnel costs. They also would be more directed annually to those employees who are truly outstanding. An employee who gets a 3% merit raise one year retains that 3% every year thereafter, even though their performance in future years may not, in fact, warrant it. So if you look at merit bonuses, that may be one better way to do that. But we need to keep our larger goal in mind, and that is we need to continue to focus on services and infrastructure. And I think this council is doing a very good job in doing that. A lot of the things that I asked for and had comments about, some were adopted, and some were adopted to my surprise, and I commend the council for those. Others were not, but again, politics is the art of compromise, and I would ask you to keep that in mind in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Urs. Would anybody else like to speak regarding the budget? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing for the 2019-2020 annual budget?
So moved.
Wendell moved. Do I hear a second? Second. Barry second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'd like to open a public hearing for the Shane Outpost Park Rezoning Request and a text amendment for conditional use for campsites. Do I hear a motion to open that?
So moved.
Wendell moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Barry second. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Preston.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. You have two items before you, item 7.1 and 7.2. We're actually asking you to pull those items for this month, and we're going to come back to you next month with another option. We had some internal discussions, and we found that we think we have a better, simpler way to go about this than what we've presented to you so far. So we'd like to come back with that option.
Okay. Thank you.
And that entails, when you get down to the motion, a motion to call for a public hearing next month for an alternative.
7.2 and 7.3.
7.1 and 7.2.
So we'll want to call for a public hearing.
Yeah, for the July 9th, I believe it is, the next council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Preston.
Before we close, before you go down, Preston, the flooding that has happened on the park over the weekend, over the subject property, does that give us any kind of pause about putting this kind of resources into that location, given what we saw this weekend? Is there a plan for, unfortunately, these biblical rain events are becoming fairly common for us annually. The site of the property after the rains this weekend gave me pause, and I just want to make sure that you guys are considering that or aware of it and have some kind of plan moving forward.
Preston, you might want to call on Sean.
Yeah, I would defer to Sean or
Okay.
somebody. The items that I've been involved with are really just the
Just the
rezoning
zoning.
part of it.
Okay.
So, I
Sorry
don't
to
know if
get
you want
off
to speak to it at all, Sean.
I can speak a little bit. I watched it a lot.
Microphone. We all have to be heard.
Most of the flooding, if you were to see it, so, it would hit where the potential amphitheater stage would be, because that's where the flooding will actually hit. Up above the bathroom area, the water pump house, that area still would not be hit. That would be a beyond biblical rainstorm, in my opinion. Because we have seen a lot through the fire pit area, is what you're referring to. I do agree, I think we need to address something about that if we're building there. I don't have the answer for it, but I would.
That was really just my question, is that we are aware, before, whether we're successful with the grant or not, invest that much of our town resources if the parcel isn't viable for what we're envisioning it for. I mean, you can't camp underwater.
No, definitely not.
And as far as like the building, the amphitheater itself is basically not going to have any electricity itself. The stage will have electricity, so we may have to pay attention to make sure if there's any electrical units there elevated so much off the ground as far as for flood. But most of the time it's going to flood up, wash out, wash in, and we should be fine.
And we're looking at that as part of the park, but actually where the amphitheater was is actually on town property now.
Yes.
Correct.
That's not actually in the donated property.
It actually, we have recombined it all, so now it is.
Well,
So
yes.
it's a
The way
massive
it's reconstituted.
survey now. It's basically from Buckeye Rec Center to the park. Everything's in that. But once you kind of get as the road comes down where the water plant is, or not the utility water plant, but the pump house. That's kind of where the amphitheater side of it would be. So stage is more so what the concern would be. Again, in my opinion, the stage is going to be more of what you're looking at in terms of damage from any floods. That's more in that floodplain. There could be steps we could take with Eggers Construction or somebody, who knows, building the ground up a little bit. I don't know, that gets into a whole new ballgame, but, so I'm not going to talk about that.
That's not in the budget at this point.
Well, that's not even the grant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl, for bringing that up. Would anybody like to speak during the public comment from the audience? Okay. Do I hear a motion to close the public comment for the Shane Outpost Park? Barry moved, Wendell second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. We have a consent agenda before us. We've got the Budget Town Council meeting minutes from the 17th of April. And we have the Budget Town Council meeting minutes from the 24th of May. And a special called meeting for closed session was April 28th. On that consent agenda is also a capital project ordinance, which has to do with the Buckeye Water Treatment Plant completion and the closing of the construction fund. We have an amendment to the golf cart ordinance, which addresses that little portion of Clubhouse Road for anybody who's familiar with that. With the ordinance the way it was, you weren't able to take the golf carts down to pick up your clubs or bring them back, and we have amended that in the ordinance to make that road an exception. We have some land donated to us, as Mr. Brown had mentioned, 17 acres that abuts Sweetwater, and we also have another land donation, which is the Taylor property. And the Board of Adjustment met, and they have asked that when we do have a Board of Adjustment meeting, that they would normally start at 6 p.m. and they have requested for us to begin the meetings at 4 p.m. instead. So that's part of the consent agenda. And then we have a budget amendment, which is basically the end of year accounting amendments on that. Do I hear a motion to accept all that I just said on the consent agenda?
So,
Madam Mayor, I had a question before we. With the golf cart amendment, this is an attempt to rectify an unintended consequence. It was also my understanding we were going to lower the speed limit upon that road. Is that covered in this ordinance, or is that on a different meeting's agenda?
That is not covered on this ordinance. That will be in July, on July.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question also.
Okay.
This is on the, Petros, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in McCormick, on the property that the town.
17 acres.
Right.
That's correct. It says the town will advance the cost of an appraisal of this property. Why is there an appraisal?
The people have requested an appraisal, and I thought it was worded that they would pay us to get it appraised before we accept as part of the condition of acceptance. So before we address that, they just want to get the best taxable donation for that, but they're going to pay for it. So what happens is, once it's approved on the consent agenda, we'll get them price of the appraisal. Once I receive the check for appraisal, we'll appraise it and then prepare the paperwork to accept it.
Okay,
Does that
thank
answer
you.
your question? Okay.
So they're paying for the.
Correct.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Wendell moved and Barrett's
Second.
going to second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
I'm sorry, I am noticing a typo in the, that should say May 28th, it says April 28th. I apologize.
Okay.
Discussion.
So we will make the motion with the amended date of May 28th, is that what we're talking about? Okay. And we'll make that motion again, Wendell,
So
with the amended date, and Barry will second it again, and we will vote on it. All in favor, say aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, since we're not going to do the Shane Park property rezoning and the zoning permitted use table, we will call for a public hearing, make a motion to call for a public hearing on July 9th to discuss the Shane Park property rezoning and the zoning permitted use table text. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Barry moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Wendell second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. We are down to our annual budget.
All right, thanks, Mayor. I'll try to be brief. I'm just going to read excerpts from the 2019-2020 budget message. The proposed tax rate for this fiscal year is .732 per $100 of evaluation. That's not changed. The rate is based on a tax valuation of $545,991,320, estimated at 97% tax collection rate, but we are trying to increase that. Each penny is about $54,599 that's collected per penny. There is a change in projected expenditures up to $7,067,051. I send that to council. Basically, that's because the streetscape grant, which was going to be split over 2 years, even though it was awarded in May, they had some technical issues with DOT and the contractor. So all that now is in the 1920 budget, $309,597, I think, approximately. So that's the change on that. Each department's done a good job to maintain and reduce spending and only necessary capital items to carry out the council missions and departmental missions. Water and sewer revenues, that's for the general fund. Now moving to the water and sewer, revenues will increase by approximately 23% more this year. That's addressing the capital improvement plan and more funds toward the Watauga raw water intake. Also this year, there's $1,740,000 for the Charter Hills Waterline Replacement Project. Other projects include clear well and storage tank painting, a new generator for the Parkway, Beach Mountain Parkway, dump truck replacement, manhole replacement rehab, hydrant, and meter replacement. So, like I said, I'm not going to read all, I'm just hitting you some of the highlights. Sanitation fund, unfortunately, is also increasing this year by $5 to cover additional employees and also the increase in landfill costs from the county and the way they change their collection policies. Moving on from that, nothing to say about 911. Salaries and benefits, as Ernst mentioned earlier, we do have a 1% cost of living increase and up to 2% merit raise with scale distribution. We've already moved to different insurance, so that is saving a significant amount of money this year. Next year, if the claims come in as high as they have been, we'll probably see an increase, so that's in the future. You'll see a list of capital outlay items in the budget message. I'm not going to read through each one. We've read through those several times. There's no changes on that. I mentioned Charter Hills waterline replacement, the new generator for the taps and systems. Just to recap, the total capital outlay in the general fund is $1.1 million. The total capital outlay in utility is 2.3, and the total capital outlay for E911 phone system, I think that figure is, $1,800 is for the capital outlay. That is correct. Also, one change from before, you see committed fund balance reserves. These are items that have been earmarked for certain expenditures in the future. You'll see, public safety building, Watauga intake, Shane Park project, what's left of the $200,000. Public Works Building, Lake Coffee Building. But the most significant one we talked about, which was not on the last version, is just earmarking $500,000 for Buckeye paving. I'm meeting last month and this month, still trying to work with DOT on getting them to work out some kind of plan to address that. I mean, I'm not saying anything's coming, but we're still talking.
Nice.
Future concerns, there are many projects in the planning phases for the town. The town council has assigned fund balance to the most significant projects for the general fund. Public safety has been assigned funds for a new fire pumper and building. The Watauga intake is a significant project and the single largest project the town will construct in history, projected at $16 million. Shane Park will increase the recreational offerings. The town has applied for grants to cover half the proposed costs for all three phases. Fundraisers are being planned. We're also looking at a fundraiser now for July 31st. We've had several meetings on that over the 3-life year of the project to secure the balance of the funding required. Stabilization of the hill at Buckeye Recreation Center, an updated public works facility, public safety facility also. That actually, public safety assigned funding for the future, that is still in there, but there's no operational funding. The council had 2 initial budget workshops and 2 follow-up budget workshops with council input and changes. They had a public hearing on the 7th, and today you have the second public hearing. We had a public participation on May 24th. The staff continually looks forward to providing the high level of service our council and citizens expect to make Beech Mountain the great place it is to live and visit. I also want to close out by personally thanking the leadership team in helping with this year's proposed budget and insurance exploration. Additionally, I want to thank all leadership team members for their patience and guidance in the third budget for me here in Beech Mountain. And finally, the council has been progressive and forward-thinking and preparing for the future while maintaining strong reserves and utilizing rate schedules to ensure that funds are available for needed infrastructure, maintenance, and improvement projects in the future. So thank you.
Do I hear a motion to accept the 2019 and 2020 annual budget as we have discussed?
So,
I've got a question. The only thing
Wait, 1 second. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Comments?
the only comment I have is that I think I concur with what Urs said. I think council's done a good job on dialing in on some of our expenditures and revisited these and sharpened our pencil, but also I would like to see the budget go back to our department heads and for them to review it again and see if there's anything that can be removed and separate possibly, wants over needs.
You want to do that before July 1st, when the budget becomes in effect? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I've sent 2 emails out requesting for the department, requesting for this action to be taken, and I haven't heard back. So, and this was like a month and a half ago.
It's because there wasn't a consensus for that.
Well,
Now we can do it.
I mean, no one
Whatever the
responded, so
council
I
is
didn't-
ever on the council next year, I mean, I would say that's what you should do then, next year. But this budget was discussed time and time again.
well, it was, but I
Different
had
meetings.
requested for it to go back to each department head, and, there wasn't any feedback, yes, we can do it, or no, we can't because of this.
there was no other support.
There was no other.
There was no other
There
support.
was no support.
At that time, there was no other support for it.
Well, and that's, okay, I understand that, but it'd been nice if somebody would have responded and said there's no support for it and we're not to do that, rather than say nothing. So anyhow, that's my
Noted.
only comment on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Urs hit on my 3 largest concerns, like he's a mind reader or something, and I understand why there's frustration, and I think it's incumbent upon whoever's sitting here in the next year that budgets do need to be trimmed additionally. I think we have a good document for this year, but I agree there is certainly room for improvement. I am especially concerned about the growth of the recreation budget. And we'll also echo about the police budget as well. The year-over-year increases in that do not seem sustainable to me. But as far as this year moving forward, I think that the budget we have is a good budget, and I don't think you should have any difficulty in supporting this one as it's written, and I will, if sitting here next fall, be with you on seeking further cuts.
Is that a hint?
Are you telling us?
I mean, once you give that, I think Earth said that the budget was 18% higher, or 17% higher. I mean, once that money, once you reach that plateau, it's hard to go backwards. It's hard to take that money back.
Well, there are some unique and one-time things driving the recreation budget as far as the capital projects and things like that. My concern's more of the year-over-year existing ones, and like I say, I will, if sitting here with you, I will become more of a deficit hawk with you on both of those items, as well as employee benefit costs, salary costs. I mean, all of the things that are unsustainable over the long haul, unless we're going to increase our tax base or our revenue, which no one in the room wants to hear. So.
Are we, Tim, have you ever looked at a zero-base line budget?
Yeah, yes, sir, I'm familiar with that, and we sort of do that now as far as operational, but I'm familiar with that, so if council wants to try to look at zero-based budgeting, in my opinion, it's kind of academic. I mean, you start with it, but you have to have so many basic things to go back in. So, I mean, I think we're sort of doing that now, but if you want to explore it more, we can.
Well, I think we need to look into it. If you start at zero, and then as each department looks at what's important, rather than start where we are and say, okay, do we want to add more or do we want to subtract? If we start from ground zero, we might be able to cut a lot of this stuff out.
I think we need to challenge the department heads, and I'm not saying there is anything that can be trimmed, but if we don't challenge them, then, we may make some progress and we may not. So it's.
I think it's something we should look at. Next,
A way to do
for
that.
next budget.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I agree for next budget, and I would like, the savings I'd like to see applied to escalating, the capital improvement projects, the Charter Hill, move on to Greenbrier. I mean, I'd like to see us be aggressive with there, and I think year-over-year savings that we can, that we can move even quicker on those projects.
I was going to say, a way to start zero base would, rather than try to do all departments, pick one or two departments within the town and start early in the year, like January or February, to start building it. Because you build it by what is it that we have to do, and then how do we fund it? And that's how zero-based actually starts, is deciding what you want to do with a particular department. But trying to do it all at one time would be awkward.
No, but I agree. If we start, we pick one department or two departments.
One or two departments and maybe
And see how it works.
The way to do it.
Do we have time before July to send the budget back to each
No.
department head?
No.
No.
I would not think so.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the 2019-2020 annual budget, say aye.
Aye.
Any against, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, Carl, for your input.
We've got town personnel policy, Article 6, employee benefits. Mr. Holloman.
This is what we discussed last time, Mayor, about allowing the employees to request a week of vacation time if they have a week of vacation time. That's just how it would appear in the personnel policy, and we're just seeking formal approval.
Do I have a motion to accept the change in the personnel policy?
So
Second.
Wendell moved, Wagner second. Are there any comments? All in favor, say
Well,
aye.
I have one comment. I know, but I just thought.
It's too late.
I woke up.
It is too late.
Hit the gavel.
And the only issue I have is that I understand, I think employees need to get vacation. I think they have to have, I think they have the time off. Every company I've always worked for, the owners have always insisted to take time off. You gotta recharge your batteries. And sure, it's easy to say, I'd like to have a week's advance on my vacation pay, but you're not really taking a vacation. So I'm really more in favor that the employees take their time off and not necessarily give them an opportunity to get advance on their vacation pay.
I don't think that it's our place to tell employees what to do.
Well, it is our place because our employees' efficiency is
But you don't know
important.
that for a fact.
And,
Well,
well, conceptually, I agree with what Barry's saying.
There is studies will prove that.
And my experience in the private sector was, this was to alleviate excessively accrued vacation, to put a cap on that. You were still required to take your 2 weeks, if most of ours are 1 week and after a certain period of time. To me, that's why I supported this. I believe it's to alleviate that backlog, maybe encourage some vacation, but to keep it from growing that way. I mean, it's a valid point that Barry makes, that if an employee works every day, year round, efficiency, safety, is all going to suffer. You know, there's a benefit to vacation. It's why we provide it.
But it was also brought up that it's possible, and it's, of course, we don't know, but an employee might want to take that extra week in cash, so he can go on a week's vacation.
And I support that concept. Here's the money to take
double-edged
your other
sword.
week, so you don't get 2 weeks off and you've got money to take one, as long as that's what's going on. But,
Right.
I mean, I believe it's in the right spirit, what we're trying to do.
No, I understand that, and I'm not necessarily going to say no. But the point is that we got to, you know, he takes the money and doesn't necessarily go on vacation. And again, to me, that it's got to affect, I don't care who it is, it's got to affect you somewhere down the line.
Do
When
we
we
know?
did discuss
Do we
this
have
last time
statistics on
about
that?
whether or not to make them take mandatory 5 days off, but there was no consensus to add that to this
But do
change.
we even know, like, on our employees, do we have statistics on that? On do they take their vacation time?
I'm quoting off the cuff, so.
Okay, off the cuff.
Off the
I
cuff.
don't have any cuts, so.
Okay.
Off the sleeve.
I think the majority of our employees take either a week or days throughout the year as they need. Like I said, if you want the exact number, I can come
Well,
back
we
with
don't have
that.
it.
But
I'm just wondering.
I don't know of anybody who has not taken a day off. I have worked in other towns, you know, where people work there 26 years and not taking a day off. So I'm not aware of that happening here.
And the reality of the modern is people don't get to take a whole week off, but if they're taking their days throughout the year, that's the cumulative effect will be the same, I believe. I mean, and that is the benefit if it's provided. No one travels the way that the previous generation did, where I'm off this week and we're going, you know, for 5 days, 7 days, what have you.
But you also got to remember that when you set up vacations, you set up a vacation calendar. Because that one person is gone, somebody else has got to fill in.
We are unique in that responsibilities have to be covered, and that's, you know, that falls on the department
So
heads
again, if you
to
don't
properly
have-
schedule it.
Right, if you don't have any planned vacation time, then that kind of thing you get a problem with that. But anyway.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the personnel policy, say aye.
Aye.
Any against, say nay. Motion passed. We have old business. We're going to have a vacancy in our TDA as of July 1st. Phyllis Winter has resigned her position as of that date. So I would like to hear if we have a motion for Cindy Porter to fill a TDA vacancy as of July 1st, and that position will fill out its term and end December 2022. Do I hear a motion for that, for Cindy Porter to be on the TDA?
So,
Second.
Wendell first, Widener second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. And Phyllis was chair, so we now have to fill a chair position and a vice chair position, because the vice chair, Jimmy Accardi, I would like to hear a motion to accept Jimmy Accardi to be the chair of the TDA as of July 1st.
so
Second.
Wendell moved, Widener second. Any discussion?
He's got to supply pizza.
That's what I was going to say, pizza?
I'd like to, I mean, Jimmy, if you're not aware, I'm very disappointed in the state of our TDA, the state of our visitor center and all of that. I hate to see Phyllis leave. I hate some of the displays that became public in the county. I'm really counting on you to take control of that and get it back. I mean, I was very proud to serve on that board and the work that we did, and I just am disappointed in the shape that things are in. Hiding behind rising numbers is not indicative of positive work and what's going on. I mean, a rising tide floats all boats, they say. Clean it up, man. Get it back to what it was. I mean, I think you can do it, and I absolutely support Jimmy for chairman.
Okay, all in favor of Jimmy becoming the chair of the TDA, say aye. Aye. Any against, say nay. Jimmy's got the chair. And to fill Jimmy's position as vice chair, do I hear a nomination for Calder Smoot to be the vice chair of the TDA?
So moved.
Wendell moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Barry second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against, say nay. Motion passes. Congratulations, I think.
We'll see.
Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things to go over. I'd like to congratulate Danny Hollis. We do have one of our own retiring at the end of this month, and so I'd like to say congratulations. I believe he's worked for the town on 2 different occasions. He left and came back, so he is our garage supervisor, and really want to thank him. I think he and his wife plan to travel as possible and enjoy retirement. So, and I know he likes working on old cars and do that. So he'll have his hands full. Also, if you had a chance to go down to the rec center, the LZ approach to the ball field is the grass has been cut once. It's grown back in. I was down there, I think last night looking at it, and it looks good. So we should be soon for our stress test. We want to get all the fire trucks on it. So as soon as Riley gives me the thumbs up, we'll go with that. I think I might have mentioned last month the Part F grant for the Shane Outpost Park has been submitted, and we're still waiting to hear from that. Public Works building, that will hopefully be ready to bid out at the end of June. We're answering up the final questions, and we're getting down to...
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, we just went yesterday, and we're getting down to the point where we're answering questions about cabinets and stuff that I don't know if we need to be answering right now, but we're down to the nitty-gritty. Also, the drinking water, some of you have heard, we have the second best drinking water in the state. And just a little precursor, there's going to be, Roar Water's going to be here next month in July to present that. So won't steal all their thunder, but that's coming next month to hear more about that. Also, the gate valve, all that work down at the Buckeye Reservoir has been finished. I won't say Buckhorn. One of the towns I worked in had a Buckhorn Reservoir. I don't know what it is with bees. But anyway, so thanks Robert, all Daniel, and all the staff on working that out. And Diligent was here last month. So Mayor, that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Maybe our drinking water has some homemade mountain water in it.
Do you know anything about that? All right, we have council comments. Wendell?
Nothing. I guess I do have something. I'm looking right at Kate right now for the mud run. That was something that, I take your thunder? I actually was not able to attend myself. I usually help out with those things. Maybe next year.
I want you to participate, never mind.
No, I'm not going to participate in running mud. I saw people doing that. I don't want to do that.
His legs?
But I was a great success from everything that I've heard. And I think everybody's coming up with ideas to handicap the winner of the run. I think Michael Holloman has to be handicapped in some way. Yes. Oh, listen to that. Okay. And I suggested that what we could do, because they have penalties. If a person didn't want to do the particular challenge at that particular point, they could take a penalty. I think he needs to do both. In order to get
putting weights on him next time.
There you go.
There you go. Weights might work.
He weighs 100 pounds.
But again, congratulations on that. The rec center in general worked on that, but I know Kate was taking the lead and he did a good job.
Widener.
I think Tim mentioned earlier about the increased tipping fees or the sanitation fees at the dump in Boone. And we've discussed, or actually I brought this up a few times in the past, and I think we need to address it, which is I've seen on multiple situations, multiple times, where other communities are bringing their trash up to Beach Mountain, which is costing the taxpayers money. Don't know how much. I don't know how you put a dollar figure on it, but I think that for a start, that any HOA that's within a certain mile radius of here, that our town attorney should send the HOA a letter informing them that they need to, well, it needs, whatever our ordinance says, that they can't use our recycling center. And then come up with some options. Either that community can, pay their fair share, whatever that dollar amount is, and or they can purchase a dumpster, build a fence around it, and then the town empties it. I'm just looking for options. To me, it would seem like that the easiest thing to do would have them, require them, excuse me, to have their own dumpster, and then the town charges them, X amount of dollars to empty it. That's it.
Barry,
All right.
gotta wake you up again?
Gotta be quiet and a little slower when you do that.
I guess.
The only thing I have is we've had some complaints about golf carts as far as people holding babies on the golf cart or having people on the back just standing. And for us that came from big cities, you have neighborhood watches. And so what we need, the police are going to be going around, but they're not going to be everywhere every day at every hour of the day. So if you see a golf cart that's being not used properly, you've got to call the police and let them know. Sending an email to me or sending an email to Renee, it's too late. We can't do anything about it. Yeah, we'll call Tim and say, well, on Lake Ridge, there was a guy running 100 miles an hour in his golf cart. Okay, well, okay, I'll go look. By the time he gets there, there's nobody around. So what I need you to do is, like, if you take a picture of it or follow it where it goes, and whatever where it's parked, then we can tell the police department this is where the guy lived. Now, they might not be able to give him a ticket, but at least they can give him a warning and say, this is the ordinance, you can't use your golf cart in that manner. But we need your assistance. We passed it on the approval of the committee that suggested it. There's been some flack coming left, right, and center about that, but that's a whole different story. But from the mayor. But the point is that if we have it, we want it to be safe. And there's always somebody out there that doesn't want to follow the rules. So we need your assistance. If you see it, just report it, please. That's all I have.
Hate to interrupt, just one comment. We are going to send out a copy of the ordinance and something about a golf cart ordinance in this in this month's utility bill. So that hopefully will get it on everybody's mind and do that.
Sure.
And we've had 19 people register so far on golf carts.
That's good.
I don't know how many there is out there, but so far we got 19.
Meeting the new requirements.
Carl.
As always, thank you, everyone, for attending, for your participation, your feedback. I think I've said enough on where I feel on the budget and the TDA, so I'd like to circle back to some of the things Wilson said. Pete, I miss Shirley. Always the kind word and a smile, which is becoming such a rarer thing. Sweet lady that I miss. Hobart, that one brings a smile. I don't know how many of you have been around long enough to realize when we weren't actually a town, and we had security instead of police, and Hobart was around then as well. So I can remember driving cars at 14 years old with a former mayor, the nephews of a former mayor. And they chase us for a minute and throw the light on and then drop off, and we thought we've outrun the police. Pull up into the driveway, and Hobart would be sitting on the porch with Alan, just shaking his head. Yeah. I know I sometimes wax poetic about the beach mountain that I grew up in. I still believe the spirit of that town is here. We're a larger community. We have greater issues, greater divisions, but when you hear me talk about Beach Mountain, it's where I grew up. It's my home, and it always will be. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
Thanks, Carl. That was a good story.
Mayor, can I ask one more thing before you have your final word?
I got a lot of final words.
I failed to recognize Sarah Lapis. She's our summer intern MPA program from Appalachian State University. So she's going with all the different departments and working on some projects in planning and some projects in Shane Park. So I just want to recognize her so people know who she is.
And we're happy to have Sarah here with us.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for being with us. Okie dokie. I went out at 7 p.m. on Sunday night after, 4 days of rain. My road that I'd have to get out on, Wild Daisy, we had gotten a notification that it was washed out. It's right in the middle of woods and there's trees, and I told Darren, I'm sure the branches got stuck in there. Matthew was there, Matthew Clausen, and Joe Townsend was there at 7:30 at night. So I stopped and talked to them, and they had been out at 7 in the morning till noon. They were out at 4 p.m. till when we saw them at 7:30. And yeah, it was sticks and shrubs and stuff coming down this big old spring and river is what it was then, getting ready to clog it again. And I mean, there's just nothing we can do about that. We drove down by Greenbrier. They had cleaned that up already, and sure enough, in the little creek there was this huge pile of floating debris getting ready to go through the culvert again. It's I don't know if there's anything we could do about that, but that's what causes a lot of that. What I did notice when we drove around was that a lot of the culverts that run under driveways, they're either clogged on the ends or they're smashed shut. And then we were talking, there's trash bins that are sitting in the culvert, so the water can't flow through that. My question is if the culvert is under the driveway, when they built the house or whatever, the owners put the culvert in, they either gravelled or paved over that. Whose responsibility is that culvert to keep clean?
Yes, we have an ordinance that speaks to that. For reference, it's 154.221. It's in our stormwater protection ordinance. And for a private driveway culvert, the responsibility for maintenance and repair of that is the homeowners. If it is a culvert that's been dedicated that we have accepted and agreed to take maintenance for, then of course it's ours. But for that driveway, the responsibility is the homeowners. And if the culvert's been smashed or is in need of replacement, we have another section that requires that any new culverts have be corrugated metal or a corrugated double wall plastic with a minimum diameter of 18 inches, which was passed by council in 2012 to try and address that concern as these things.
Whose responsibility is it though to, if we send them a note and they say, we tell them your culvert is not working, it's creating an overflow into our roads, and they don't do anything about it. I mean, can we fix it and charge back to them?
The process would be the same as any other violation of our ordinance. We would need to send them a notice of violation, give them the opportunity to appeal. If they do not appeal, they're subject to a $100 a day civil penalty plus potentially our costs for replacing it if they don't respond to it. So potentially it could be very expensive for a homeowner who ignores it. And certainly the cheaper and more proactive way is for them to spend their money on a new culvert instead of spend it paying civil penalties to us.
Okay, because that's what I noticed a lot driving all around this mountain, is that water was overflowing on the roads, and it's the culverts underneath the driveway, so that answers my question. On Sunday mornings at Fred's from about 9 till 10:30, I will be there for breakfast if anybody wants to come and talk. And Wendell and Barry will be alternating weekends and joining me. We're always there to hear from you, and doesn't always have to be bad stuff. It could be some good stuff every now and again, but we will listen to bad stuff and we will have a nice conversation.
Giant breakfast?
No, Barry.
What you gotta understand, the mayor is paying.
I just said you were.
Well, I'm not the mayor.
Oh, boy. So that's the thing on the, and we had those town hall meetings last year, and they seem to be a big success with the different topics. I don't know if there's any topics that we can bring up, so I was talking to Tim and saying, can we just have a general town hall meeting? You know, let people come, ask us questions, and not in the formality of a council meeting. Maybe you could submit questions to the council before the meeting so we can kind of go in a direction. I'm just curious how you guys feel about that. Not so much these guys, but you guys, how you feel about the town hall meetings. If we don't have a topic, do you think it's worthwhile? Anybody?
Anything that's informative for this town is worthwhile.
Okay. Think it's a good communication thing that we can do?
Every one of those, I attended every one of them, and I thought all of them went very well, actually.
Okay.
For informational purposes, and not everyone can go to every one of them.
Right.
What you were talking about is a general one.
Right.
Frankly, I like that idea because, you know, these little things that sit back and don't ever get any attention, maybe could get some attention there.
Okay.
I think that's actually a good idea.
All right, we'll figure out which days and we'll go from there. I thought they were good last year. It's a good communication. In Cold Mud, I want to thank Phyllis Winter for coming up with an idea that was perfect for this mountain. I want to thank Kate Prisco, hugely thank Kate and her team through the rec center. But Kate was the primary force in doing it. The obstacles were excellent. I was by one of them. It was tires, and there's no way in heck I'm ever doing anything like that. But these people loved what you did. They loved it. They'd see what the obstacle was and they just went for it, or they did their jumping jacks. But they were laughing and they were having fun. There were kids this big doing these obstacles. It was a wonderful moment on Beach
You don't
Mountain.
have the video, do you?
Wait a minute, I saw that fire.
Yeah, they had to jump over a little fire.
It's on the website.
I mean, it was
It's
so
on Facebook.
cool. So Kate, you did such a good job in putting that together. The video that you ended up putting together with whomever was awesome. Sean, everybody did such a good job. Kelsey was out there on the vroom vroom and making sure everything was good, and
Was that a room?
vroom, 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 vroom. And it was just an awesome event, and 80 people, folks, 80 people on a first event like that is huge for our community. Next year, it's going to be a lot bigger. Kate's already thinking about what she can do different. So Kate, thank you. Sean, thank you for really bringing together a great event, and to Phyllis of actually thinking about it. What a great idea, and making it work. Went to the Red Cross meeting on Saturday.
Well, Kate needs an applause.
Okay. Thank you. And I went to the Red Cross meeting. Widener was there, and just to let you guys know, if need be, the shelter's going to open. It's going to be a Red Cross shelter. If we have something going on Beach Mountain, usually, as Chief Pudney had explained, it's a winter event when people come up for the day and we get pounded with snow and they don't have any place to go because there's no room at the inn. And they have opened it, and it would probably be opened during that time. And it's a really good thing. So I signed up to be a Red Cross volunteer, as did other people who attended that meeting on Saturday. I just want you to know that anything that you can do, sign up for the Red Cross and be a volunteer when needed, and let's help our community. It really is a good thing that we can do that for our small community. Is that the video? You got to see the video for the mud run. It's awesome.
Hey guys, we're out here with Beach Mountain Parks and Rec. We're doing our first ever in cold mud obstacle race. It's about a 3-mile mud run with 18 obstacles, everything from a mud crawl to a flame jump. We've got a ton of people out here today, and we're super excited.
That was a lot of fun. We had fire, spears, mud, and rope swings. What else do you need?
It was awesome. And I didn't do it, but it was awesome. That's all I have. Citizen agenda comments. Does anybody want to make any comments on what we've discussed here in this meeting? Rick, come on up. Give her your address too.
Rick Miller, 514 St. Andrews Road, Beach Mountain, North Carolina, 28604.
Thanks, Rick.
I would just like to add on some comments that were by Wilson and Carl. I moved up here in 1981 and I knew Hobart very well, and I remember Carl with my nephews getting in a few problems. But that besides that, I would like to mention our first mayor that was appointed, Vern Holland, in that note, and also Rube Meridian and Charlie Burleson would serve with me in the 80s and 90s. And we're losing a lot of people, obviously. So I think I would suggest it's up to the council, is possibly making some kind of a plaque or something for the past council members. They've been on the council, and remember them, because regardless of what you feel about council, they all did a good job in their own way.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second. I think that's the motion.
Wendell motion. Second. Good night, everybody. See you at Locals Night. Good meeting, guys.